In terms of getting older, it's the first she said she'd missed. She always was remembering that first boy that she kissed, with so few things to start that she could cross out on her list. She always hoped to find a first to clutch within her fist. She never knew the city built without the scent of pain. It always was the smell of things that brought her back again. The dryness of a street lamp where flies find last refrains, the chord struck by the breath that follows thunderstorms and rain. A peas and carrot smell would always bring her back to hospital. She'd live 1,000 lives before she saw death as an obstacle. She'd die 1,000 times before she thought that it was possible, and cry 1,000 lines. Her tear-soaked lies were far from optimal. Through bruised and wet mascara would she choke out where she went, when time was not an object, just a currency she'd spent. She told them of the river's edge, a camp without a tent. She'll promise that it's done with, but then she'll catch the scent. He always was a follower and never longed to lead. The shadow on his eyes told tales of those that can't succeed. He liked to be a lesson, teaching what it meant to bleed, and still he looked upon himself a special sort of breed. He'd never been to hospital, not even for a day. He liked to foster that belief that scars would melt away, and even in the dead of night he knew he couldn't pray. Eternities for winners, sinners never get to stay. To see him in the daylight was to see the eyes of ghosts. His skin was shades of winter, scarcely seen so near the coast. He kept with his own company, a couple friends at most. To laugh would be a luxury that none of them could boast. She met him by the river on a day she'd been let out. To think that he was dangerous, even then she'd had no doubt. You seem to know a thing or two, her whisper reached to shout. He laughed back at her bold retort, laid winsome as a lout. You know I'd tell you anything, he giggled on the sly. I'd just have hoped you realized that it's easier to lie. For what's to stop me spinning fibs that lead to you and I? With one sarcastic, scoffing laugh, he gestured to the sky. She cocked her head and crossed her arms, appearing deep in thought, then looked him up and down, silently planning her retort. Do what you so desire, sir, until one day you're caught. I care enough to be here, but not to play your sport. She never was an optimist, just had no time for fear. And though it's what she wanted, the end is never clear. With each December 31st, she welcomed her last year. For life is such a challenge for those left standing here. She never liked a challenge, and this by far the worst. She'd hoped to leave like fireworks in one last final burst. In never getting her desire, she felt forever cursed. And while he fled, she thanked him and farewelled her final thirst.